Ever wondered what it feels like when your childhood sweetheart gets so tired of your devotion that she tries to set you up with another girl? That was my life. I was the definition of a world-class simp. One day, on my way to bring food to my childhood sweetheart, Willow, I caught her passionately making out with the school's notorious bad boy, Makoto. The moment she saw me, her face twisted with anger. She knocked the meal out of my hands and snapped through gritted teeth. "You damn simp. Can you stop following me around all the time?" Without a second of hesitation, I answered, "No. My devotion to you is as clear as the sun and the moon." That only made her even angrier. "Get lost. I'll introduce you to my best friend instead. Can you please obsess over someone else for once?" My eyes instantly filled with tears of excitement. I stammered, "Why, you mean your best friend who's 5'7", has a stunning figure, porcelain skin, a beauty mark on the right side of her chest, a tiny waist, long legs, and a killer peach-shaped figure?" The words had barely left my mouth when a bright, bell-like laugh sounded behind me. I turned around and saw a breathtakingly beautiful woman smiling at me. "Dummy," she laughed. "You might as well just say my name." My face turned bright red while Willow's expression instantly darkened. But everything had started long before that. Willow, my childhood sweetheart, had been seriously injured in a car accident and was losing a dangerous amount of blood. The hospital contacted me because I was listed as her emergency contact. By the time I reached the hospital, I was drenched in sweat after running nearly 2 kilometers because traffic had completely stopped. I leaned against the wall outside the operating room, struggling to catch my breath, when a nurse rushed out and said they were running out of type B blood. Willow's parents hadn't arrived yet, and I happened to have the same blood type. Without the slightest hesitation, I rolled up my sleeve and told them to take as much blood as they needed, ignoring the thick needle piercing my arm. The next day, after Willow woke up from surgery, I cleaned myself up before visiting her, so she wouldn't notice how pale and weak I looked from donating blood. Just as I was about to enter her room, I overheard a conversation. One of her friends said, "Your childhood sweetheart donated so much blood for you. He's been chasing you for years. Doesn't that mean you should marry him?" My hand froze on the doorknob as I waited for Willow's answer. Instead of gratitude, I heard disgust. She laughed and said, "Oh, give me a break. George and I grew up together. I've always seen him as a brother. We're basically family, and now we literally have the same blood running through our veins. Dating him would feel like incest. It's honestly gross. Besides, he's such a people pleaser. He's a total simp who always tries to make everyone happy. If we actually dated, he'd drive me crazy. I'm the type who gets bored of relationships quickly. If he only wanted something casual, maybe I'd consider it, but he's way too serious, and that's exactly why I'd have to think twice." I clenched my teeth so hard I could taste blood. Willow had dated countless boyfriends over the years, and every time she begged me not to tell her parents. Whenever I questioned her, she'd hold my arm, pout, and promise, "It's just for fun. If I ever introduce someone to my parents, I'd rather it be you, Gio. I already know everything about you." Those sweet words had kept me trapped in the friend zone for years, always believing that one day the devoted guy would finally win. Instead, I discovered that the very blood I'd given to save her life now made her feel disgusted. The anger burning inside me slowly turned cold. I even found myself looking around for something to throw, maybe a fire extinguisher or anything within reach. Then, out of nowhere, a loud scream came from inside the room. "AHHHHH?" Followed by someone shouting, "Anna, have you lost your mind?" Curious, I peeked through the doorway and found Willow having her hair yanked while another girl repeatedly smacked her on the head. "Stop treating him like a brother," the girl shouted. "How about you start treating him like a human being first, you shameless jerk?" The one standing up for me was Willow's roommate, Anna. They had always been close, yet there she was defending me without hesitation. She looked sweet and innocent at first glance, but underneath that gentle appearance was a fierce, fearless spirit that completely caught me off guard. Watching her stand up for me made something shift inside my heart. I didn't even know why she cared, but in that moment, The contrast between her delicate beauty and her fiery personality was impossible to ignore. And for the first time in years, my eyes stopped following Willow and landed on someone else. My heart started racing. I glanced down at the inside of my forearm where the needle had gone in. The area was swollen, covered in an ugly mix of purple, blue, and yellow bruises from donating blood. Willow had no idea what I'd put myself through for her. And at that moment, I realized something about myself. Yes, I was a people pleaser. Yes, I had a habit of giving everything to the person I cared about. But once that person lost their place in my heart, I was capable of giving that same devotion to someone else. My eyes slowly drifted away from Willow and settled on her roommate instead. Looking back, I finally understood why I'd spent so many years putting Willow on a pedestal. It all started the day we first met. Both of my parents were doctors, and they were always busy. When I was 10 years old, they accidentally left me locked inside the car during a scorching summer day. The doors were locked, the windows were shut, and the heat became unbearable. I genuinely thought I was going to suffocate to death. Then, just as everything started fading, the sound of shattering glass rang out. A hammer smashed through the window. Willow had been the one to spot me. She immediately called her parents for help, leaned over me with a panicked little face, gently shook my hand, and handed me a bottle of water. I grabbed it like a man dying of thirst, and only after drinking did the terrifying feeling of suffocation finally disappear. Then, with the innocent curiosity only a child could have, she looked up at her parents and asked, "Mom, Dad, since I saved him, is he going to marry me when we grow up?" Her father could only stare at her before saying helplessly, "Honey, what kind of TV dramas have you been watching?" Maybe that was the exact moment I started seeing Willow through rose-colored glasses. Later, when my parents took me over to thank her family, I discovered they had just moved in next door. As it turned out, our lives were surprisingly similar. My parents spent most of the year overseas attending medical conferences, while Willow's parents were constantly away on business. One night, they secretly left on a late flight because they were worried she'd make a fuss if they told her. She woke up during a thunderstorm, terrified by the thunder, hiding beside her bed and crying as she called them. Their phones were switched off on the plane, so after waiting in fear, she climbed across the connected balcony between our apartments and knocked on my balcony door. The moment I saw her tear-streaked face, I pulled her inside and comforted her. "It's okay. Stop crying. I'm here with you." From that day on, we became inseparable. With our parents rarely around, we grew up relying on each other. I stayed by her side for 10 years and spent another 10 years chasing after her, only to hear her say that sharing my blood made her feel disgusted. The hospital room door suddenly swung open, pulling me back to reality. Bright light spilled into the hallway, and I instinctively turned my face away. A faint scent of fresh jasmine drifted past me. By the time I looked up again, Willow's roommate was already walking away, her quick steps making it obvious she was still furious. I hurried after her. I'd once heard that even the strongest lion depends on its pride, and even the tallest tree grows because of the soil beneath it. People are no different. The real danger isn't having no one around you. It's trusting the wrong people until you can't tell who genuinely cares and who is simply using you. Once that happens, everyone either stays silent or tells you only what you want to hear, and eventually you lose the ability to recognize the truth. Standing there, I couldn't ignore what had become painfully obvious. Willow was selfish to the core. Staying devoted to someone like her had turned my feelings into nothing more than a joke for everyone else to laugh at. But her roommate was different. She seemed like someone who actually knew the difference between right and wrong. I eventually found Anna downstairs standing beside a vending machine that refused to work. I walked over, gave the machine 2 solid punches, and a can of soda immediately dropped out. Picking it up, I handed it to her. She looked at me with clear surprise, but just as she reached for the can, I tightened my grip and stopped it halfway between us. Looking straight into her eyes with complete confidence, I said, "You like me." She burst into laughter. Only then did I let go, and the can dropped into her hand. She looked down at it, then back at me with an amused smile and asked, "What makes you think that?" I couldn't help smiling back. "Because you stood up for me?" And you smiled at me. So that means you definitely like me. My eyes drifted to the scrape on her wrist, and she narrowed her eyes at me. So, you heard everything? Instead of answering my question, she tried to change the subject again. Since I was determined to move on from one crush and start chasing another, I decided there was no point beating around the bush. Miss, you've officially caught my attention, I said with complete confidence. I want you to be my girlfriend. You don't have to be perfect. When I pursue you, all you have to do is respond. Anna raised an eyebrow and leaned casually against the vending machine, studying me with an amused look. You want me? She asked, pausing at exactly the right moment to make my heart skip a beat. She let out a quiet laugh, and the smile on her lips was so effortlessly charming it almost felt dangerous. What's this? She teased. Are you planning to kidnap a nice girl off the street? Then she pushed herself away from the vending machine and started walking. I immediately hurried after her. Wait, don't go. You still haven't answered my question. Do you like? Before I could finish, she suddenly stopped and turned around. I almost walked straight into her. We were standing so close that I caught the familiar scent of jasmine again. Looking straight into my eyes, she spoke in a low, playful voice that completely threw me off. Buddy, clear your heart out first before you start flirting with another girl. I opened my mouth to explain, but she had already stepped into a taxi. The window stayed open as the car pulled away, giving me one last glimpse of her beautiful profile, her bright eyes, and the effortless way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Whether she meant to or not, she had completely captivated me. Damn it, I wanted her even more now. Ever since middle school, I'd known there was something different about me. The kinder someone treated me, the more I wanted to devote myself to them. The more I cared for them, the happier and more fulfilled I felt. My therapist had summed it up perfectly with one brutally honest sentence. You really do have a problem. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept wandering back to the years Willow and I spent growing up together. Our families had always been close. Whenever my parents had to leave town for long periods because of work, they would leave me with the Liu family. Willow's parents treated me like one of their own. They even installed a small window between our bedrooms so we could talk whenever we wanted. Back in middle school, Willow would slide open that little window, rest her chin on the frame and whine sweetly, Gio, I can't sleep. Tell me a bedtime story. By the time we reached college, she would lean against the same window and smile before saying, Gio, I know you're so good to me because you like me, but I'm not ready for a relationship yet, and I don't want to lose you. Can you just stay the way you are? When I'm finally ready, you'll be the first person I consider. I believed every word. Then one night, everything changed. I had fallen asleep with my headphones on, but at some point they slipped off. Strange, intimate sounds woke me up. Willow was video calling one of her boyfriends, and the two of them were shamelessly flirting on screen, doing things that were far beyond innocent. It seemed she'd been keeping herself very busy all along. A few days later, Aunt Lou told me Willow was finally being discharged from the hospital. She had a terrible headache herself and asked if I could help Willow pack her things. Almost immediately after that, Willow sent me a text in her usual bossy tone. George, come to the hospital and pack my stuff. Since Aunt Lou had asked me personally, I went anyway. When I walked into the room, Willow was sitting on the hospital bed with her injured leg propped up, completely absorbed in watching short dramas on her phone. She barely looked up when I entered. You're here, she said casually. I wasn't interested in making small talk, so I gave a brief response and quietly started packing her clothes. While I was doing that, an open box of condoms suddenly slipped out and landed on the floor. Hearing the noise, Willow glanced over and casually smiled. Oh, my boyfriend stopped by earlier. Over the past few days, Makoto, her rich boyfriend, had often disappeared during the daytime. It wasn't difficult to imagine what the two of them had been doing alone in that VIP hospital room. They certainly knew how to enjoy themselves. Surprisingly, I felt absolutely nothing. No jealousy, no anger. It was as if I had become an emotionless NPC simply completing the task Aunt Lou had entrusted me with. After I finished packing everything, I walked over to Willow and quietly peeled an apple for her. It was a skill I'd learned from her years ago, back when she had smiled at me with that same sweet expression while asking me to introduce her to Makoto. I looked at Willow and asked, "Are you and Anna pretty close?" For a brief moment, something flickered across her face, almost as if she had remembered the conversation from the other day. It looked a lot like guilt. Instead of answering, she pushed the apple away and muttered, "The corner of my mouth hurts. I can't bite it." That was when I finally noticed the injury. The corner of her lip was split open and covered with a small scab. I nodded. "Oh." After sitting down, I asked again, "Anna's pretty hard to pursue, isn't she?" "Anna?" Willow repeated, sounding surprised. When she realized I genuinely wasn't bothered anymore, her tone relaxed. She gave a small snort and said, "Yeah, she's actually pretty difficult. She's gorgeous. She's still single, and sometimes I wonder if she just hates men." Then she narrowed her eyes at me suspiciously. "Why do you keep asking about her?" I quickly sliced the apple into smaller pieces and smiled. "Can you introduce me to her? I like her." In my mind, it was the perfect solution. If Willow helped play matchmaker, I'd get the chance to pursue someone I actually liked, and she'd never have to deal with my feelings again. Sounded like a win for both of us. I even thought I was pretty smart for coming up with it. Instead, Willow froze. The next second, she suddenly swept every slice of apple into the trash. Pointing at the cut on her lip, she glared at me. "George, are you blind? Anna is the one who hit me. You never came to see me after my surgery, but now you have time to worry about another woman? Do I really have to remind you? Every time I got hurt before, you'd panic, run for medicine, and take care of me immediately. And now, look at you." Caught me off guard. Willow had always hated how much I fussed over her. Sometimes she even acted annoyed by it. Yet now she was keeping score of everything I wasn't doing anymore. I simply shrugged and answered honestly, "Because I genuinely don't feel any urge to care about you anymore, Willow." I had never spoken to her that coldly before. The faint smile on her face froze, and the fake curve at the corner of her lips slowly disappeared. After a long silence, she smiled again. Her eyes drifted toward the open box of condoms before returning to me, as if she had suddenly figured everything out. With a smug little laugh, she said, "George, you're jealous. Using another woman to make me jealous isn't going to work because I've always seen you as a brother. Although, when Makoto and I break up, I suppose I could give you a chance." She kept smiling, completely confident in herself. The look on her face instantly reminded me of the day I confessed to her after graduating from high school. It was my birthday. She had told me to hurry up and blow out the candles, and after I happily shared my cake with her, she smiled in exactly the same way before saying, "But what should I do? I've always seen you as a brother." That single sentence ruined my birthday, and it never felt the same again. Childhood sweethearts know each other better than anyone else, and because of that, they also know exactly where to aim when they want to hurt each other the most. Willow was trying to use that same wound against me again. She wanted to break me the way she had before. I let out a quiet, cold laugh, turned around, and walked away without looking back. Idiot. That was the beginning of the first real Cold War Willow and I had ever had. But I didn't have much time to think about it because my mind was completely occupied with one thing: figuring out how to win Anna over. I was so distracted that I kept zoning out during lunch. My roommate pressed his hands together across the cafeteria table and looked at me with pleading eyes. "George, I'm counting on you for this afternoon's fitness test." He had signed up as a volunteer for the school's fitness assessment, but it happened to fall on Valentine's Day, the same day his long-distance girlfriend was finally coming to visit him. He begged me to cover his shift, and since the job was simple, I agreed. All I had to do was count repetitions. I was assigned to the girls' sit-up station, and to my surprise, Anna was one of the students taking the test. The moment I saw her, my eyes lit up. The sit-up test wasn't taken very seriously. The girls usually paired up, held each other's feet, counted the repetitions, and reported the numbers to me. Most people exaggerated the scores a little, and nobody really cared. After Anna finished, The girl counting for her smiled and said excitedly, 30. Great job, Anna. We both passed. But Anna calmly pulled her hand away and looked straight into her eyes. I was counting my own reps too, she said. I knew you might not pass, so when you only did 20, I reported 35 for you. So why did I do 40 while you only reported 30 for me? Aren't you embarrassed? The moment she finished speaking, everyone nearby turned to look at them. As whispers spread through the crowd, the other girl finally snapped. What are you talking about? You only did 30. What would I possibly gain by giving you a lower score? You're being ridiculous. Are you just upset because you did fewer than me? Anna didn't argue or raise her voice. She simply smiled and said, Fine. If you're that confident, let's do it again. We'll see who actually did more. The girl hesitated for a split second before quickly agreeing. After all, Anna had already finished one full set of sit-ups, so making her repeat it would obviously put her at a disadvantage. Sure, she replied. Let's do it again. Then you can stop accusing me. Anna ignored the challenge completely. Instead, she suddenly called my name. George. Every head turned toward me. I looked up, confused, and met her beautiful eyes. Then she smiled and said, How about this? Whatever number he counts is exactly how many I'll do. I had no idea what she was planning, so I answered with the first number that came to mind. Then, 40. It wasn't until everything was over that I realized what had happened. Anna pushed herself through all 40 sit-ups and ended up completely exhausted, while the other girl couldn't even manage 10 on her second attempt. The difference spoke for itself. Feeling guilty, I instinctively handed Anna a bottle of water. Her cheeks were flushed as she accepted it. She glanced briefly to the side, then unexpectedly leaned against me, resting her head on my shoulder. Somewhere in the distance, I vaguely heard someone calling Willow's name, but before I could pay attention, Anna leaned closer and whispered near my ear, I'm so tired. It's all your fault. There was a playful smile in her voice, and honestly, she wasn't wrong. I had casually thrown out the number 40 without realizing she'd actually do every single one. Deciding not to waste the opportunity, I smiled and said, Then how about adding me on WeChat? I'll make it up to you. Anna didn't pull away. She tilted her head, looked at me with amusement, and replied, Sure. Then she stepped back, opened her QR code, and held out her phone. I quickly scanned it, only to freeze in disbelief. We were already friends. Worse, I had never even bothered to give her a nickname. She immediately noticed my expression and rolled her eyes. Surprised? She asked. Back then you added every girl in our dorm just so you could keep tabs on Willow. Her gaze shifted to my contact list before she added sarcastically, I get it. Apparently nobody deserves a name except Willow. She wasn't wrong. Back then, my entire world revolved around Willow, and I honestly hadn't paid attention to anyone else. I could only force an awkward smile and shake my head. Great. I'd managed to ruin my own attempt at flirting. That evening, Willow's mother called and asked me to meet her at the school gate. While complaining that she couldn't get in touch with Willow no matter how hard she tried, Aunt Lou handed me a thermos filled with black chicken soup and a bag of medicine. George, dear, Willow just had surgery, she said kindly. Please help me keep an eye on her for a while. I added several medicinal herbs to the soup, but she's hated the smell ever since she was little. Make sure she drinks all of it for me, okay? And she forgot her medicine at home, so could you bring that to her too? I nodded without hesitation. Of course, Auntie. But the moment she walked away, I slumped onto a stone bench with a miserable expression and opened my chat history with Willow. Looking through it, I realized almost every message had been sent by me. I heard from your roommate that you caught a cold. Is it serious? If you're not feeling well, I can take leave and bring you to the hospital. Don't you still have your group presentation? I don't have classes this afternoon. Message after message. None of them had ever received a reply. It had also been a long time since I had texted her first. The last time we spoke was the night she accidentally sent me a message before immediately deleting it. I happened to be awake playing games and instinctively typed a question mark, but then I stopped. If she'd unsent it, she'd probably sent it to the wrong person. There was no reason to ask about it. That was the moment I realized something had changed. I no longer felt the need to chase after Willow or constantly try to please her. Unexpectedly, the very next day she sent me an angry voice message. "Looks like you've gotten pretty bold, George. I saw you typing, and you still ignored my message." Apparently, she'd noticed those few seconds when I hesitated before replying. From that moment on, our relationship only became more awkward. We even started pretending not to see each other whenever we crossed paths on campus. Even so, Aunt Lou had spent hours making that black chicken soup, and it honestly smelled pretty good. I let out a quiet sigh before sending Willow a message. "Willow, can you come to the security office for a moment?" I waited for a long time, but there was no reply. In the end, I had no choice but to go look for her myself. As I walked past the sports field, one of Willow's roommates recognized me. She looked at the thermos and medicine in my hands, then smiled knowingly. "Wow, bringing Willow stuff again? She should be on the rooftop right now." "Thanks," I replied, giving her a quick wave before heading that way. I had barely taken a few steps when I accidentally bumped into someone. I almost crashed into Anna. Her eyes dropped to the things I was carrying, and she let out a dry laugh before repeating the roommate's words almost perfectly. "Wow, bringing Willow stuff again?" I immediately shook my head and explained seriously, "No, Willow's mom asked me to bring these to her." With that, I continued walking. Chasing after your old crush while standing in front of the girl you wanted to pursue was awkward enough already. What I didn't notice was that Anna stood there watching me leave, quietly consumed by jealousy. When I pushed open the rooftop door, I called out, "Willow!" A startled yelp answered me. The next second, Willow threw herself into Makoto's arms and buried her face in his chest. "It's all your fault," she complained to him. "You said nobody would come up here." As my eyes adjusted to the bright sunlight, I finally saw what was happening. A discarded table sat in the middle of the rooftop, and Makoto was leaning lazily against it with one arm wrapped tightly around Willow's waist. The lipstick smeared across her lips made it painfully obvious what they'd been doing before I arrived. The moment she realized it was me, she clicked her tongue impatiently. "What now? Do you need something?" Standing where I was, I awkwardly held out the thermos and medicine. "Your mom made you some black chicken soup, and she asked me to bring your medicine." Willow rolled her eyes as usual. "Oh!" She stepped away from Makoto, irritation written all over her face, and took the things from my hands. I was about to leave when Makoto called after me with a smug grin. "Do you know what we were doing 1 second before you walked in?" I looked at him without any expression and simply shook my head. Chuckling to himself, he held up a piece of white lace between his fingers and said casually, "I was just unhooking her bra." I stared at him for a moment before replying flatly, "Got it. I'll leave you two alone." I turned to go, but Willow suddenly grabbed my sleeve. Her eyes were cold, almost like a snake staring at its prey. Speaking one word at a time, she said, "Enough, George. Do you realize how annoying you've become? Seriously, how much longer are you going to keep chasing after me?" I brushed her hand away impatiently. "I'm not." She frowned. "Oh, really? You're not? Then why are you here?" The more she spoke, the angrier she became. Without warning, she hurled the ceramic soup container onto the ground. It shattered instantly, sending broken pieces and hot soup across the rooftop. "Just leave already," she shouted. "I'll introduce you to one of my girlfriends. Okay? I'm begging you. Can you please go obsess over someone else for once?" I froze. Willow had plenty of friends, so I hesitated before carefully asking, "Why, you mean that best friend of yours who's 5'7", has a stunning figure, porcelain skin, a beauty mark on the right side of her chest, a tiny waist, long legs, and a killer peach-shaped figure?" I repeated every single detail exactly the way Anna had once described herself. The description was so precise that both Willow and I fell silent. The atmosphere changed instantly. Willow stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite understand. There was no anger or disappointment in her eyes anymore. Instead, there was sincerity, and something that looked almost like anticipation. Yet somehow her face grew even darker. Then a bright, bell-like laugh echoed from behind me. I turned around and saw Anna standing in the doorway, bathed in the warm light of the setting sun. Her delicate features looked breathtaking as she smiled directly at me. "Dummy," she said with a laugh. "You might as well just say my name." My face instantly turned bright red. "Holy crap. What are you doing here?" Anna smiled mischievously. "If I hadn't come, I never would have known someone had studied my body so thoroughly." The golden evening light made her look even more beautiful. Seeing how naturally we spoke to each other, Willow's expression darkened. She glared at me and demanded, "Since when did you two become so close? You were hugging all over each other on the sports field this morning." "Seriously? Isn't that disgusting?" Willow said. I almost laughed. Just moments ago, she had practically been taking her clothes off with Makoto on the rooftop, yet somehow she thought hugging was the problem. Before I could respond, Anna calmly slipped her arm through mine and smiled. "George is my boyfriend, so what's wrong with a little hug?" I stood there completely stunned, then nodded so hard it was almost embarrassing. Wait, had I actually succeeded? I hadn't even started trying to win her over yet. The two girls locked eyes from across the rooftop. Anna kept the same gentle smile on her face, showing no trace of hostility, while Willow's lips pressed into a thin line as if she were getting ready for a fight. Then my stomach growled. Anna gave me a light push and laughed. "Come on, let's go eat something good." Ignoring Willow's face, which looked dark enough to storm, I hurried after Anna. "Are you really willing to be my girlfriend?" Before she could answer, Willow suddenly shouted from behind us, "George, if you walk away today, there'll never be another chance for us." I turned around. Willow lifted her chin proudly, expecting me to hesitate, but the confidence on her face disappeared the moment I looked at her with open indifference before turning right back to Anna. Nervously, I reached for Anna's hand. "So, you're really my girlfriend now?" She smiled and naturally intertwined her fingers with mine. Inside the car, the warm golden sunlight poured through the windows, covering her face in a soft honey-colored glow. "George," she said quietly, "I've actually liked you for a long time. I was afraid that if I let you have me too easily, you wouldn't treasure me, so I deliberately made you wait. And just now, I was really afraid Willow would take you away again." Her cheeks turned bright red, and the faint scent of jasmine surrounded her. My heart wouldn't stop racing. She had liked me all this time, while Willow had only ever kept me around as a backup plan. As I leaned over to fasten Anna's seatbelt, I couldn't resist the sudden impulse. I quickly kissed her on the cheek. She narrowed her eyes with a playful smile. "Well, you've kissed me now, so you'd better take responsibility." I nodded so enthusiastically I probably looked ridiculous. "Absolutely." I couldn't stop grinning. By the time we reached the restaurant, I was still smiling like an idiot. But just as I opened the car door, Anna suddenly grabbed my arm and refused to get out. Her face was bright red. Secretly, I found it incredibly cute. I gently pinched her cheek and said, "We're here." She looked up at me awkwardly before quietly whispering, "George, I think..." My period started. I immediately crouched beside her. "Does it hurt? Should I take you to the hospital?" Anna quickly shook her head. No, I'll be fine after some painkillers and hot water. It's just my period." "Why are you so nervous?" She hesitated before adding, "I just think I might have stained your car." Without thinking, I blurted out, "Don't worry. Cars can always be cleaned." "Really, don't worry." How could I not be nervous? Every time Willow had her period, no matter how carefully I tried to take care of her, something was always wrong. The water was too hot. Then it was too cold. Eventually she'd end up taking her frustration out on me. Anna suddenly fell silent. She looked at me thoughtfully, as if she had finally understood why I reacted that way. A moment later, she smiled gently. "George, I'm not the kind of person who takes my emotions out on someone else just because I have period cramps. Having emotions doesn't mean you lose control of yourself, and cramps aren't an excuse to treat people badly. Besides, my cramps aren't your fault." I managed just fine before I had a boyfriend, and I'm not suddenly incapable of handling them now. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I quietly pulled her into my arms and held her a little tighter. At that moment, I couldn't help thinking, "Thank you, Willow. And thank you for introducing me to such an amazing girlfriend." By the time Anna and I arrived at the restaurant, we were already late, and everyone immediately started teasing us. "Anna, who's this?" they asked with knowing smiles. I simply smiled back and kept putting food onto Anna's plate while she focused on eating without answering. Growing anxious, I nudged her. "Hey, say something." Anna tilted her head with a playful smile. "Why are you so impatient, boyfriend?" She deliberately stretched out the last word, her eyes sparkling with mischief. The entire table burst into cheers, while I immediately lowered my head and buried myself in my food to hide how embarrassed I was. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted us. "Anna, do you mind if we join you?" The question was directed at Anna, but Willow's gloomy eyes never left me. She had actually followed us to the restaurant, and Makoto stood beside her looking just as unhappy. Neither of them seemed to have come with good intentions. I fully expected Anna to turn them away. Instead of refusing, Anna smiled gracefully and said, "What are you saying, Willow? Of course I don't mind." That was what she said, but the very next second she stood up, switched seats with me, and quietly placed herself between Willow and me. Willow watched the entire thing without saying a word. She bit her lower lip so hard it almost turned white. Throughout dinner, Makoto hinted several times that they should leave, but Willow ignored him every single time. Then a waiter walked over and asked, "For the dish you ordered, would you like it spicy or non-spicy?" Before I could answer, two voices spoke at exactly the same time. "Non-spicy. Spicy." The first answer came from Anna. The second came from Willow. Their eyes met for a brief moment before they both looked away. Willow rolled her eyes and let out a sarcastic laugh. "Sorry, but George loves spicy food. He's never ordered anything mild. Back in middle school, he ate so much spicy food that he ended up with gastritis. I was the one who took care of him." She glanced at me before looking directly at Anna. "But I guess you wouldn't know that. You weren't part of our lives back then. Gio and I have countless memories you'll never know about." Great. A professional pick-me had entered the battlefield. Without missing a beat, Anna slipped her arm through mine and smiled sweetly. "Sorry, Willow, but George only ate spicy food because you liked spicy food. He was just accommodating your preferences. How could you not realize that? You knew he had gastritis, yet you never figured out that he couldn't actually handle spicy food. You've known him for years and still don't understand something as basic as his health. No wonder people always say childhood friends lose to the person who comes along later." It was a direct hit. Apparently, Anna was just as skilled at fighting back. I immediately told the waiter I wanted the non-spicy version. My choice couldn't have been any clearer. Willow tightened her grip around her water glass until her knuckles turned white. It was obvious she was struggling to keep her composure. Looking at her, one question kept running through my mind. Why did Willow seem to hate Anna so much? And if that was the case, why was she so determined to stay at our table in the first place? After dinner, I drove Anna home. Just as we were about to get into the car, Willow grabbed the door and asked coldly, "Are you taking her to a hotel?" Her expression was icy. When she met my furious stare, she pressed her lips together and continued, "Aren't you? There are plenty of hotels around here." I laughed. "Sounds like you're pretty familiar with the area. I guess you've spent plenty of time checking into hotels with other people." Then I slammed the car door shut. The loud bang nearly caught her hand. As I pulled away, I saw her shouting through the rearview mirror, "George, you've really gotten bold. Don't regret abandoning me." I kept my eyes on the road and let out a tired sigh. Lately, Willow had been trying far too hard to make herself the center of my attention. Anna glanced over at me. "Do you feel sorry for her?" "What?" I turned toward her, confused. She didn't sound happy. "You feel bad for her." This time it wasn't a question. It was a statement. I shook my head. While we waited at a red light, I reached over, took her hand, and absent-mindedly played with her fingers. They were delicate, soft, and honestly very pretty. No, I said. I don't feel sorry for her. Then I sighed dramatically. I just think she's really annoying. It was almost unbelievable. There had actually come a day when I found Willow annoying instead of irresistible. The next day, I waited for Anna so we could have lunch together. Students filled the campus pathways in every direction. A heavily tattooed guy walked through the crowd with a cigarette hanging from his fingers, paying no attention to the people around him. "Watch out!" someone shouted, but it was too late. As Anna stepped outside, the lit cigarette accidentally brushed against her arm. "Hey!" I immediately lost my temper and started after the guy, but Anna quickly grabbed my hand. "It's okay. I'm fine. Let's just go have sweet and sour pork today. Okay?" I shook my head. "No, we're going to the campus clinic first." I insisted on having it checked. The school doctor found some ointment and handed it to us. A few minutes later, he stepped out to use the restroom, leaving us alone. I carefully applied the ointment to Anna's arm. Then an idea suddenly popped into my head. I glanced around to make sure nobody was watching before quietly pulling the white privacy curtain closed around us. When I turned back, Anna was sitting on the examination bed with both hands resting behind her for support. A playful smile curved across her lips as she looked at me with obvious amusement. I swallowed nervously, leaned in, and gently brushed a quick kiss across her lips before immediately pulling back. Anna frowned with mock disappointment. "That's it." Before I could answer, she slipped an arm around my neck and kissed me herself. My heart immediately started racing. I swallowed hard and whispered, "Don't mess around. This is the school clinic." Anna simply leaned against me. My heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. Anna looked at me with a teasing smile and whispered, "For a second, I thought you were planning to do something much bolder. If this is all you're going to do, you don't have to close the curtain next time." Just then, footsteps echoed outside. Realizing she was about to keep talking, I quickly whispered, "Shoo!" and stole another quick kiss from her lips. A moment later, the footsteps faded away. Anna gently patted my chest, and I stood up to pull the curtain open. The moment it slid aside, I froze. Willow was standing there, and her face was darker than a storm cloud. Through gritted teeth, she demanded, "What exactly were you two doing behind that curtain?" Unfortunately, I was still fixing my collar, and Anna's cheeks were flushed from holding her breath. Together, we looked exactly like two people who had just been caught doing something suspicious. Willow pointed at Anna with trembling anger. "You shameless woman. What did you two do?" Anna didn't lose her composure for a second. "Whatever George and I do isn't something we need to report to you." The air instantly became tense as the two of them locked eyes again. They had been glaring at each other far too often lately, and I was worried another fight was about to break out, so I quickly stepped between them. At that moment, the school doctor came back. Looking around in confusion, he asked, "What's going on here?" Willow shoved me aside, turned around, and stormed off. But after only a few steps, she suddenly stopped. It was as if something inside her had completely snapped. She grabbed my sleeve, her voice shaking as she demanded, "You touched her? How could you touch her?" Before I even had a chance to answer, Anna stepped forward and slapped her across the face. Then she looked at Willow with a cold smile and said, "You're not in any position to be jealous. As far as I know, I'm George's girlfriend. You're not even his ex. So what exactly gives you the right to compete with me?" Honestly, I couldn't understand why Willow kept pushing her. That slap completely shattered whatever self-control she had left. She immediately raised her hand to hit Anna back, but I caught her wrist and stepped in front of Anna. "Enough!" Willow stared at me as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "You're protecting her?" Her eyes turned red almost instantly. She looked like a trapped animal desperately searching for a way out. "George, we grew up together. You're protecting her? Then what about everything we've shared all these years?" My head was starting to ache, so I interrupted her. "Willow, I only have one question. Why are you here today?" I. She couldn't answer at first. She ran a frustrated hand through her hair before finally biting her lip. "I don't know. I just don't want you to be with another woman. Every time I see you with someone else, I get so jealous I can barely breathe. I think I've always liked you. You were always there. I got so used to having you beside me that I forgot what it felt like to fall in love with you. Ever since I saw you with someone else, nothing has felt right." She looked at me with pleading eyes, hoping I'd believe her. I let out a cold laugh. Slowly, I raised my hand as if I were about to slap her too. Anna immediately grabbed my arm. "Don't stop me," I said. She calmly replied, "I'm not. I'll do it." Before anyone could react, she slapped Willow again. The force of it sent Willow stumbling to the ground. I crouched in front of her and spoke slowly. "Willow, I realized you liked me long before you ever admitted it to yourself. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been the emergency contact saved in your phone. But here's the problem. I don't like you, and I have no intention of putting you in line and telling you to wait your turn. As for me, I've always only seen you as a sister." Willow's eyes went wide. Tears instantly filled them before spilling down her cheeks. She covered her face with both hands as quiet sobs escaped through her fingers. I stood up to leave, but suddenly everything in front of me went dark and my body swayed. Before I could fall, Anna caught me. She rolled her eyes and laughed. "You fragile college boy. You should spend more time exercising with the grandmas and grandpas at the park." I couldn't help laughing too. "Enough teasing. What do you want for lunch?" Hand in hand, Anna and I walked away together, our backs slowly disappearing into the distance. Behind us, Willow watched in silence before slamming her fist against the ground in despair. Only then did she finally realize it. She had fallen in love with George, but she had realized it far too late.